and they watch them.
Do you see that thing moving around the screen?
Yeah, the arrow.
Oh, you do
That's
see
not
the.
you.
Yeah, I'm the arrow, I guess.
Yeah,
But you
yeah,
don't
you're
see
the
anything
arrow.
in front of it.
No, I mean, so this meeting is being recorded by the host. I said got it. So now it's, I guess, going, right?
Yep.
Okay. Let's do this thing.
All right. Welcome to the radio show. Radio show. Radio show.
Welcome to the radio
Two, 10, 23.
show.
So Lenny Bruce, America's greatest stand-up comedian, has a really funny thing happen to him where he fucks everybody over and then he gets fucked. And I guess that's kind of how things go
Oftentimes.
when you're fucking, you know.
I mean, so that's the aspect of his life you want to talk about. There's relevance to it, right? Because he met an end, and his end wasn't pretty. So he was in Supreme Court fighting for his right to speak without a lawyer. But you're talking about it's. I think it's worth talking about. But you think that like there's lots of conspiracies. Maybe the government killed him and stuff. But I'm asking the question from your looking into him, you see that just he had a track record of just kind of serving himself, screwing people over for a long time. And he had a line around the block of people that wanted a piece of him. Right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, why don't you talk about that?
Well, some people wanted a piece of him because he,
Because he screwed him over, right?
yeah, and he was
Yeah.
part of like, orchestrating some of these things that was like happening to people. And I don't know, people took offense to that a little bit, and
Of course.
I don't know.
So you can't keep that as a large screen. Now I'm looking at your computer screen on the right side, like, all your pet projects and stuff.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Just hit the green, to expand it.
Yeah, but then it interferes in our like video or whatever, so
How? How does it interfere?
it
Does
just
it?
does.
It just does. Okay, then that's the way it goes. It's all right. We're gonna get the tech stuff hammered out later. We'll just talk about Lenny now. All right. Well, so he was so he was such a pioneer and a significant person because he really created a new highway for comedians to have more of a full voice, authentic, kind of talk about things that are taboo. He kind of opened the door for that. So that's a big deal in the world of stand-up comedy. But he, like actually a lot of stand-up comedians, was part of a drug culture that affected the way he acted for sure, affected a lot of his decisions. And he acted like a junkie acts, man. Junkies use people to get what they want, which is high. And if they can't get high, they'll do anything to get high. And so I'm sure that's behind a lot of his really bad decisions, not only on his own behalf and his wife, my God, and but he was just blazing a trail. And something that creates a lot of resentment with people is when you blaze a trail like burning people while you're getting loaded. Because he made a lot of money all of a sudden. And he still was the same jerk. Right? Like he
Mm-hmm.
never changed that trajectory, right? Of how he treated people. Like when the money came in, he just had more whores, more drugs, right?
I
I'm asking.
no, yeah. Obviously he was pushing the boundaries in every single way.
In every single way. And, you know, I mean, how many people, like celebrities, especially, whether it's musicians or actors or comedians, that like trailblazers, guys that do amazing things, you look at their life and it is a mess. You know, Richard Pryor's life was no better, you know, but I call him the king of comedy. He was a comic genius. But dude, he was supposed to be cast in what's the movie? The Mel Brooks movie with Cleavon Little, the Western. What's it called, man?
Brother, where art thou?
No, Mel Brooks, not the
Oh,
Coen brothers.
Shanghai Destiny.
Okay, whatever. It's a
Oh
West
yeah, the one where he's that
Blazing Saddles.
Blazing Saddles. Yeah.
Yeah, so Yvonne Little is the name of the guy that got cast in that role, the black sheriff. It was supposed to be Richard Pryor, but they wouldn't hire him because his drug problems were so severe that the insurance on him would have cut into the budget. So they didn't hire him.
Well, in this case,
Crazy,
Lenny
right?
Bruce didn't get hired because they were the FBI or the whatever New York FBI was coming down on him and shutting off all his the club owners. And so then
Well,
they were like, their hands were tied, and they were like, we love having you, Lenny. It just they won't let us, you know.
right. Well, because the squeeze was being put on the owners, that was their way to get to him because they couldn't get to him in a way. And so they were like, okay, well, the places where he plays, we'll just squeeze them. And it worked.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, man. I mean, Jim Morrison, you know, he was getting arrested constantly because of his conduct on stage. He was pushing boundaries, right? He was pushing boundaries in his life with his drugs, like excess, like unbelievable. But he was doing it also as a performer, like going on an edge that no one else had really gone on the way he did.
Mm-hmm.
So it attracts people to that because everybody kind of wants to be able to do that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But what he was doing, even Jim Morrison's band members hated him, couldn't stand him because he was such a jerk,
Hmm.
you know? And I never would want to meet Jim Morrison, but I love his voice. I love the Doors. I do. I love the Doors. But I just know I wouldn't want to meet him. Sounds like I wouldn't want to meet Lenny Bruce, but I love what he did. What he did was so important in the world of stand up and just in the arena of free speech itself. Yet he was a shitbag of a guy. Yeah, you found out. Yeah. I mean, why don't you talk about some of the stuff you
All
found
right,
out to
so
kind of like illustrate that?
so you think about this guy who, you know, American Jewish, born, you know, into this different kind of. His mom was I think, a dancer, wanted to be like this dancer. She was very famous, I think, and she was
I think she
in
was in the circuit. You know what I mean? Like the vaudeville kind of, I don't know if it was
yeah, a little
vaudeville.
bit, but she was kind of a higher. I guess what they portrayed, from what I could find out, is yes, exactly what you're saying.
She was
Anyways,
part of it. She was part of that
yes.
culture.
Yep.
Yeah,
And he would go around all these dance clubs and all these vaudeville acts and stuff when he
sure.
was super young, like
Yeah,
from
he
the time
grew
he
up
was
with it.
born. I mean, literally just grew up in it.
He just grew up on stage, really,
Yeah. Behind stage.
but he was
Behind the
there
stage.
all the time.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so I guess his mom like sent him off. Like she was like, I'm going to pursue my career. Um, I can't take care of you anymore. And sent him off at 9 years old. So he was like abandoned. And he went to live with some people, I guess, that they knew, and they took care of him from 9 to like 16. So I guess he had seen his mom, whatever, she was in and out, but so then he enrolled like immediately into the Navy, at like 16, 17 years old because
Wow.
he was like, he had grew up in these people's home in like, I don't know, Indiana or something. I don't know where it was. So, and then all of a sudden, you know, his mom abandoned him in New York. He goes to some farm, lives on some thing, and from 9 to 16 is like out of that whole thing.
Is
And
that
then at
true that in
16,
that age range that he was in like a small town, a farm?
I guess it made it feel like that, the
Oh,
information that
all
I
right. Well,
read.
maybe it
Yeah,
was
he was
true,
kind of,
maybe it wasn't.
I
Okay.
don't know. I don't know.
Yeah,
He
I
was
understand.
sent off to live with this couple. Yes, and
Right.
I think it was on a farm. So
Okay.
anyways,
Wild.
then he immediately enrolls in the Navy. And so he's like immediately enrolled 16, 17, 18 in the Navy and faces like some of the most severe combat that the Navy is even like encountering at that time. So he gets like super stressed and he's like on the ship and he starts performing for these guys to like
Hey, was it
lighten the
during
mood.
Vietnam? No, couldn't have been. Was it Korea? Well, whatever. That'd be interesting to know. But anyways, so he starts to perform like he was like a
Korean War.
stress.
Korean War.
Okay, he was in the Korean War. Wow.
Yep. Faced some of the most severe combat and then gets PTSD, but starts perform whatever. I don't he didn't say they had PTSD. They didn't have PTSD that back then. That's shell shocked. You were shell shocked.
Same
Which is
thing.
like
It's the
something
same
from the
thing.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
So shell shocked is the word that they used back then that they use PSTD for today. It
Anyways,
is
so
the same.
yes. And so he starts performing on this ship because that's all he knew in times of crisis. You know, he was growing crisis. He was growing up in this vaudeville, what you right or what you describe as vaudeville
When
scene,
things
in
get
which
bad, get on stage, tell a
so
joke.
so he starts wearing a dress around the ship and at night and like sneaking up on people and like and like being like a woman and they like these guys who'd be like wandering these shifts like late at night would all report to see a woman on the ship and Lenny would go hide and like take off the clothes and they were like, dude, did you see that woman last night? There's no woman on here. And so he would dress up as a woman and like prank people. And then apparently he just did it out in the open. Like he was like, fuck it. Everybody knows it's me anyways. I've done it to everybody. It's this huge act on this ship. It's like the whole attention is
He like gave
on
birth
this
to a
thing. And
character.
the general or who captain finds out and he's just like, oh, you're fucking done. See, and he gets kicked out and then just like fucking kicked out.
All
So
right.
anyways, that's kind of how he says his comedy really started to like take
Hold.
hold. Yeah. When he just like in that time of
It's kind of
stress or
cool.
whatever. Yeah.
That's a good origin story, Batman. Yeah,
Thanks.
I like it. That's cool. So, and then he grew up in New York, right?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, and so he went back to New York
Goes
after that,
right
didn't
back
he?
to New York and starts comedy. And in that scene of like that late night
Well,
scene
he
of
was in practically
actors.
brothels, man.
Yeah.
He was in like super seedy
Yeah.
bars and clubs with
Yeah. The
strippers,
clubs and
hookers,
entertainment, late
drugs,
night entertainment.
everything.
Yep. Yep. So
Like
then
the
you start like
low dirt level, you know, the grimy part of town.
he is like the announcer guy. So he's just
Right.
like, he's like, I'll get on stage and I'll just announce the next act.
Yeah, he was the MC.
Yep. That's basically what he started. And then he met this girl and fell in love with her. And so he worked
You have
at
a
this place
picture of
called,
her? She was
yeah, I'll
pretty.
get to it in a minute. He worked at this place called Strip City, which was a super famous place.
Yeah.
And then got into this whole jazz scene. Once that was the big thing. It was the jazz scene kind of ran all this stuff. And apparently they were all on drugs. All these
Yeah,
jazz
man.
musicians were just
They
on
were. They
drugs.
were.
And they were just fucking anyways. And so
Heroin
they were
was the
playing.
flavor, bro. I mean, they did everything, but heroin was really like so the jazz scene that you're referring to, at least so what period of time is this that you're talking about? Is this in the 40s, 50s? Like when he
Uh
was cutting
right.
into
Oh,
that scene.
so 40s so he got out of the Navy in like late 40. No. Uh Korean troops, 59.
Okay.
And then into the 60s, this was going on. So
Okay.
yeah, he lived in California. He settled in New York. He was kind of bouncing around,
Yeah.
hoping to be a comedian. And then he just got back to New York, it looks like, in Brooklyn, and started doing all this MC and shit. He got back with his mom. And then so they had a career, kind of like, she was a big kind of famous person, not and well
He
known
was
around the
known
area,
within that
and so was he.
arena. Anyway.
Yeah. And he started to want to get into movie making. That was his thing. He wanted to be in the movies, in the pictures or whatever.
Okay.
And he started to do a bunch of like self-funded project or other whatever, small independent projects and shit. And he put all his shit into that. Meanwhile, he was just like the club comic at the local strip club. And that's where he met Cheeky Green. Is that her name?
No, Shucky Green is another comedian.
Oh no, yeah, you're right. Cheeky Green.
It doesn't matter. We'll call her Bunny. I forget.
Yeah,
I
it
should
is.
know.
Yeah.
But
Well,
anyway, so the reason why I was asking for that timeline is because not only was
Honey Harlow.
okay, Honey
There
Harlow.
she
Yeah,
is.
she's pretty. She's a pretty one. I would have treated her better than Lenny Bruce. That wouldn't be hard to do, would it? But what happened? So when you were talking about he was in that jazz scene, what they're talking about is bebop jazz. That's when it was like, and it influenced an art movement. It influenced so many things. It was in Europe, they call it American classical. That's what they call jazz. And it had such an impact on everything artistically. It was because it was a true, real creation that was happening. It was exciting. The music was awesome. I love bebop jazz. Love, love, love it. I'm only bringing that up because that's where he was cutting his teeth as a comedian. It came with a culture, not just an art movement, but it was a culture. And it was it was a pretty cool, very vibrant, creative time,
Well,
like in
he
our
bounced
country.
around from New York to LA and
Okay.
did both of them, and these LA strip clubs and stuff. And
Wow.
that's where him and Honey had a child.
Okay. A
And
daughter,
then he
right?
was full-time stand-up in 54.
Okay.
And then and bouncing around, they were just bouncing around, dude.
They were living the life of a stand-up
And at
comedian.
58, they
Hotel
got
to
to
hotel, baby. That's how
yeah,
it is. It's
yeah,
how it is.
yeah.
By the
Anyway,
way, what a great way to live if you're a junkie. Yeah. Because you don't have a neighbor that sees you doing this every day. You're in somewhere new, every couple of days or whatever. Yeah, he was full blown, man.
Potter from Operation Yorkville. Just a lot of filth that I can't make any sense out of it. I says, hey, you know.
Yeah, but he was super intelligent.
Second witness,
very
Reverend Potter from Operation Yorkville. Just a lot of filth that I can't make any sense out of it. I says, hey.
All right. But he was a very intelligent man. He is very insightful. He had a lot of courage, and he was willing to talk about things that, well, to be honest, one of the things that he was talking about, or at least in the movie Lenny, that was directed by Fosse, they were just showing like some of the content that he was talking about more toward the end, which he was going on stage and talking about what he was dealing with in the court system. So I've only done stand-up as a hobby, but I've wanted to do stand-up about a number of subjects that I'm like, I don't think I should touch it. I don't even trust myself. And one of them was to talk about what I went through in court, more than once. But I was afraid to. This guy would fucking talk about it, man. He would talk about whatever he thought was important. And that's what got people's feathers ruffled on the outside of his life, right?
mm-hmm.
Like FBI, police, all these people trying to control the narrative. He was pushing outside that boundary. Unfortunately, inside his life, he was pushing other boundaries that created a lot of instability. He couldn't weather the storm of pushing those buttons on the outside. A lot of that had to do with because what he was doing on the inside of his life. And that story plays out how many millions of times, man, dude. So many great, talented
Dude, they
people.
were in Miami, Florida. Dude, they were all over the place.
He was a comedian, man. They just travel and travel and travel and
all
gig.
over the place.
That's all they did. They traveled and
he
gig.
just got arrested like everywhere he went. Everywhere. They started following him and his tour
Yeah, but so can you imagine? So he pulls into a town, right? The cops will know like the heroin dealers, or at least they're trying to find them, right? Or any of the big drug dealers. And this guy comes around and they're around him. He called attention to himself that way because he was in seedy places, which is a great place to cut your teeth as a comedian. You know, I mean, it's a great place to do that. It's just he's around a seedy element, and he was part of the nefarious stuff that goes on. So he was, you know, see, I didn't understand. I kind of thought that he was attacked. You know, like I kind of put the drug culture thing on the side burner of my mind.
You don't understand where they're going. Don't you? The appellate court's going to look at this. They're going to say, can you make any sense of this shit?
Thanks for those 6 seconds. Don't do that, man. Let's talk, please.
So he started to beat drug charges and just like work all around the place and whatever. And
right,
dude, he just became famous and fucked up. And his girlfriend, dude, he was throwing everybody under the bus, dude. Everybody he could under the bus. He threw his wife. He was arrested for the last time, I think, like the 6th or 7th time. And he had this mansion in LA that like apparently just had people in and out. He knew Hugh Hefner. Like
it was a truck stop.
It was girl and women and drugs and, you know, and all so anyways, he's going to get busted for like the last time. And he literally like blames it on Bunny and like sets her up, and she goes to jail for fucking like 1.5 years, 2 years.
See,
and then gets out and she comes back to him. Like it just on and on and on and on. Then they keep doing drugs. Then he gets all these court battles and he's battling all this court stuff and he's all extreme or whatever. And he's all fixated and obsessed on it. And then the, you know, FBI's on him. He's part of this shit. He was selling out big drug dealers and stuff. And somebody said he might've got a hot fix. Like somebody like was like, hey man, here's some really good shit. And it was like set up or laced or whatever. But apparently his roommate said like in the documentary that he had been doing like drugs, like 3 different drugs, shooting up 3 different drugs like every day for like
a routine
years. Yeah.
But like, what was it though? What was his routine? What were the drugs?
It was what was the drugs? It was
you said Dilaudid, right?
Meth. No, they were all doing meth, heroin, and Dilaudid. Yeah. It was the super cocktail.
Super cocktail? So, and this was their daily regimen?
You know what? Look at him. He's getting arrested. Look at this guy. He's getting arrested.
No, he's not getting arrested. Show if I don't know. You're not showing
freedom of speech, man.
Oh, okay. But yeah, but so I knew a guy. He was a Vietnam vet. He shot himself in the foot so he could get taken away in an ambulance to get Dilaudid.
Wow.
It really gets you high, I guess. I never took it. I don't want to. But damn, bro. Dilaudid, meth, and heroin.
Somebody said a Dilaudid. Meth, heroin, and Dilaudid. Oh my God. Like... It's Dilaudid. End up on your toilet.
But seriously, what do they call that? A speedball, which is coke and heroin mixed. They added, God, dude, that's like the most. And he did it every day, like a routine.
Oh, it was.
Did he?
Yeah, dude, they had been shooting up for years, guy.
But that was their cocktail that they shot up for years.
I don't know
I'm
if it was
asking-
yours with that one, but that's what they found in his system. So it had been like some time or
I
something.
wonder what his body looked like in an autopsy. It probably looked like a freaking tragic waste site. Damn, bro. Because he smoked lots of cigarettes too and drank. And...
Oh, drank cigarettes, shooting up meth. They shot up meth. It says methamphetamines. They were doing meth back in the day, like 100 years ago. No, I'm kidding. Like, almost 70 years ago.
Well, now that you say it, when I'm looking at his face on that video that's frozen, he looks like he's on meth, heroin, and Dilaudid.
Woo!
Damn, bro.
Woo!
That is a wicked cocktail, boy.
All right. Well, that's the Wadio show because that's all we have time for because they're about to kick us off. So
We should talk more about Lenny because
we'll
that's
do a
just one
part two.
aspect.
Let's just
of it.
record a part two. We'll put it out later. I'll
Yeah,
call you
that's
right
cool.
back.
We'll do it.
All right.
All
How
right.
do you do this shit?
I'm gonna have a cigarette, bro. I need a break. Damn, that's intense.